Bob Pollock is with us from the Extension Service. Robert, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you back with us here today. You brought the rain back with you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Guy goes away and he brings back rain. You find rain and you bring it with you. Jeez. Okay, so it's going to get
It was here before I ever left.
hot and humid over the weekend. That'll be a nice change for us. I know this isn't your particular wheelhouse, but the newest invasive tick is the longhorn tick. And it allows us to talk about invasive insects, invasive plants, and all of those things once more, which has been a topic. By the way, you can call Bob at 479-1160 or 349-WCCS and ask him your questions about your lawns and gardens. But I wanted to start there and sort of get some thoughts from you on invasiveness. And sometimes they're going to happen because these insects and plants are just going to attach themselves and we don't even know they're there. To people moving into certain areas. Sometimes it's much more damaging than in others. The report about Pollock yesterday and how they have such a continuing problem with trees, and particularly with trees that have been killed by the emerald ash borer. That's where it really comes home, huh? What invasive pests can do.
Yes.
And you can look at any stand of woods and you can see the trees. You can see what used to be an ash tree.
You can drive down the road and you can pick them out left and right now because so many of them have partially died or fully died, and the longer they're standing, they're dead. The higher the potential hazard. You know, some of them are just going to fall in the woods.
The weaker,
it's no big deal.
Yeah.
But any of those, like along the roadways, or might be in your yards or front yard or side yard, anything that could break off and fall on the road. When traffic's going by, fall on your property, on your house, on a person. Everything higher risk the longer we go here, if there's no action taken to deal with this.
Yeah. Well, we've had 3 trees come down on our property here this summer alone. We had a very healthy oak tree that blew over and smashed into my barn roof, but 2 ash trees right along the side yard going up, and one just last week. Down they came. And you can see them just as plain as could be. And that's what the destruction that one insect can cause. My Christmas tree crop growing up the other side, they've been destroyed by another invasive insect type of thing.
Yeah, and that may not have been invasive, the disease that
invaded the tree.
But it infected the tree.
Yeah, yeah.
So some of these things are around and have been around, and there's nothing we can do about them. There's other things that people are working every day to try and prevent their movement from one town to another, one state to another, one country to another.
Yeah.
But when you think about all the methods, the ways that things can move around, and just on storm fronts, just on the weather,
blow in on the wind.
There's a lot of insects and diseases that move in that manner. Their spores get airbound. That little particulate matter gets lifted up and is moved just on the air patterns.
Which leads to today's discussion that we're doing weekly now on tomatoes and other plants in our gardens affected by blight and other of those airborne diseases. It's awful hard to fight, isn't it?
It is. It's a challenge. You always have to be proactive, always looking, always observing, and watching for things. And that's what we have to do with any of these invasive kind of pests, whether it be an insect, a plant disease, a fungus, could be a fungal organism, bacteria, viruses, weeds, all those things. And then we get into animals, as well. So all those things can be invasive or non-native, but some non-native things are not invasive. That sometimes we get caught up in that where we assume that if it's non-native, then it's bad.
Yeah.
And that's not.
But other
we
areas,
can't make a blanket statement like that. We have to look at the individual thing, whatever it is, and just make a decision about whether that, it's a non-native, but it's not going to, it may not have the characteristics that allow it to get out of bounds. It may not have a growth habit. So we have a lot of ornamental plants, trees, shrubs, that are non-native plants, but they are not invasive here, and do well and perform well.
We have a caller this morning. Good morning.
Hi, Bob. I have a blackberry question for you. This year we had scads and scads of blossoms on our blackberry bushes. And as we've been picking them, I've noticed that there has been incomplete development of the berry. There's like part of the berry is nice and plump, and the other part may be brown and hard, or green and hard. And I wondered if you could reflect on what might have caused that.
Yeah, at the time that those plants were flowering and getting pollinated, and then to start the process of developing the fruit. So each one, so on a blackberry, you've got all those little individual fruits combined together. Yeah, make that bigger fruit. All right, so the whole piece that we harvest is made up of multiple little fruits, and there's a seed in each one of those little swollen fruits, and that's the same thing with raspberries and black raspberries and strawberries. They're all developing that way, so there are multiple fruits that come together to make one. So during that process, if pollination was incomplete for one reason or another, it may relate back to weather. In this case, when temperatures are too hot, and we did have a spell there where it was very warm, and that could have affected pollination. So each one of those individual flowers that may have dried up quicker than they normally would have, so that you got partial pollination occurring. So temperature will do that. Moisture, rainfall can affect that pollination process as well, and it can do it negatively. So
it's all timing question.
Yes.
Kind of like zucchini.
Yes.
Nothing can harm the zucchini crop.
Pollination, no pollination.
Right.
Thanks a lot, Bob.
Okay, you're welcome.
There you go. Boy, zucchinis this year look like watermelons.
And in the case of the zucchini, where we have separate male and female flowers on the same plant, so the male flowers tend to start out first. So there won't be any female flowers on that zucchini plant. They're all male flowers, and then once the male flowers start to be produced, then the female flowers start to be produced. So you can have a little lull in the action there early on where you see flowers, but then the fruit develop, or a little tiny fruit starts to develop, and then it aborts or drops off. Well, that was a male flower. And then the other big issue there, we need to have insect movement, insect pollination, to make that process, because the pollen's got to move from the male flower to the female flower to make that all work and develop the fruit.
Let's see if we can take this call.
Okay.
Good morning. You calling for Bob?
Yes, sir. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Very well.
Good. One quick question. At home, I have several, and I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know if they're called ornamental trees or oriental trees. It's grass that's green. In the winter, they go dormant, turn brown.
Yes, ornamental grass.
Okay, I'm sorry, yes. When they turn brown, should you cut them down to the base of the grass, like ground level, or should you leave them go until springtime? Will they automatically come back green?
So they're a perennial plant. The top dies back over the winter. So you have the option in the fall, once it goes dormant, once everything turns brown, you can cut it back then, or you can leave it go and wait till spring. Some people will leave them on there, leave that foliage on the top, because there's usually seed heads on there. And a lot of times with the ornamental grasses, those will have some color to them that they'll add fall and winter interest to the landscape. And so people will leave them there. And during the winter, they'll move around in the wind a little bit unless we get a lot of snow. It buries them. But either way, once they go dormant, once everything turns brown, then the energy from the plant is gone down and being stored in the root system. You can cut them back then, and then or you can wait, enjoy them over the winter, and cut them down in the spring. Usually in March, you want to do it prior to when, because they'll start to send new stems up
right
in the spring.
Well, the problem I had was on a couple of them, I just take hedge clippers and I chop them down to the base, almost to the grass level.
Yes.
But when a couple of them came back up this year, I noticed like in the middle was bare.
Yes.
It was okay.
And that is normal. As time goes on, as the years pass, and they continue to grow, they can be so dense, and they'll continue to grow out, that you will get, it's almost like a donut effect. You get the donut hole in the middle.
Right.
And so when you get to that point, you can divide those plants.
Okay.
You can go in while they're in that early spring, late winter, early spring in March. You can go in and cut down through there with a shovel, divide those sections up, and then, replant one section, or, spread them out, divide the plants, make more, and move them around in other areas as well.
All right. Thanks a lot for your time.
You're welcome.
And there you go. And that took us right to the end. Thank you, sir.
Just like that.
Sort of like hair club for men. It's grass club for grass. It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS, AM 1160 and 101.1 FM.